everyone, welcome back to another edition of Homemade, and today we are going to be making a simple caramel topping. This caramel can be used on ice cream, it can be used on your cakes, cheesecakes, any type of dessert that you like. This caramel is so simple, it really only has three main ingredients. Now we are going to put in the vanilla and the butter also to enhance the flavor, but our main ingredients, the corn syrup, brown sugar, and the heavy cream, those are our main ingredients. And you all, this recipe is so simple, you cannot mess it up. You cannot mess this recipe up. It is so basic and so simple. It only takes a few minutes. You do everything in one pot. The caramel can last for as long as you want it, as long as you place it into an airtight container. You all, it is awesome. Let's go ahead and get started because, again, it's only going to take us about 5 minutes to make this caramel, I promise. If you'll notice, I just have my regular saucepan and it is getting hot on the stove. To that, I am going to go ahead and add in my brown sugar. Now, you're only going to need a full cup of brown sugar for this. I'm using a half measuring cup, so I'll just put 2 scoops of brown sugar in. And just to show you that you don't have to be so specific, so precise, I'm not leveling off anything, I'm just putting in the sugar. Now we're also going to add to that 1 cup of Karo syrup, and we're just pouring it in. And I didn't quite get all of it out of there that first time, so I'm going to use my rubber spatula. Make sure I get everything out. And what we're going to do, we are just going to stir this until our sugar dissolves. After our sugar dissolves, you'll see that we'll basically have a caramel right there, but we're going to add in our heavy cream, our butter, and our vanilla towards the end. Now, to stir this, you can use a wooden spoon. I like to use a whisk. You can use, honestly, whatever you want. And what I do want you to take note of is I don't have my heat really high yet. I want to make sure I get this all incorporated. So if you'll notice, it is really, that brown sugar just gives us that caramel look anyway. So we're going to go ahead and increase our heat just a little to medium to high heat. And you do want to keep stirring this. Now, I know typically with caramel, you're not supposed to stir it because, you know, you don't want it to crystallize. But with this, you do want to stir it because you don't want it to burn and you don't want it to stick. So we're just going to stir it a little bit, let it sit for maybe like 30 seconds or 45 seconds at a time, and then we'll stir it some more. And you all, our caramel is already kind of starting to bubble, so that Karo syrup and sugar is already doing work. Now, you do want your sugar to dissolve because you don't want a grainy caramel. You do want a silky, smooth caramel. The more dissolved your sugar, the silkier and the creamier your caramel is. So you do want to make sure that you are dissolving that sugar. And we're just going to stir this again, you all. This is caramel sauce in literally 5 minutes. It takes, honestly, 5 minutes, but no longer than 10. I advise you, if you are baking, if you're doing any type of sweets or any type of sweet sauces, you do want to make sure that if you can, you have a pot that is solely designated for that. And the reason being is because sometimes if we cook with a lot of spices, sometimes the cookware can dissolve those seasonings. Even if we wash our pots and pans really well, it's just those seasonings can be so potent sometimes. If you don't, it's perfectly fine. Use what you have until you can get better. As the caramelization process happens, you'll notice that it'll actually get easier to stir because the sugar is beginning to dissolve more and more. So that's what we want. Okay, you all, so now our caramel is really starting to form. If you can see, it is starting to bubble. Now, you do want to be really, really, really careful at this stage because you can seriously burn yourself. So that's why I like to use a whisk more so than a spoon. You can actually smell it at this stage. It's really starting to smell like caramel. But you also want to be careful because you don't want to cook it too long because you don't want to burn it. It's not a good taste to have burnt caramel. So once it starts to bubble, you'll probably cook it for about 2 more minutes after that, and then you'll go ahead and add in your heavy cream. And right now, you all, we are in real time. We are at the 3 minute and 30 second mark for this caramel. So that just shows you how simple it is to make. We're going to turn off our burner. We're going to remove it from the heat. Now, you want to be super careful when you are pouring in this heavy cream, you all. So what I like to do is give it a quick stir, take out my whisk, pour in my heavy cream a little bit at a time, and start to stir. We're going to go ahead and put in our 4 tablespoons of butter. And we are going to put in our vanilla. And there's no specific measurement for the vanilla. I love the taste of vanilla. I'm just going to eye it. And that's about 1.5 tablespoons of vanilla. We are going to stir this. Now, if you'll notice, it does look super, super thin. That's not a bad thing because it is going to cool down. Now, once it cools down, it is going to thicken up. So once we have all of our butter dissolved, we are going to go ahead and put it into our airtight container. Now, if you're transferring this to a container, make sure that if you're using a glass container that it is heat proof. That's very important because you do not want your glass to shatter once you put it in. And I'm going to stir that again just to make sure everything is good. We just want to make sure that it's as smooth as possible. Now, I'm not going to put my lid on it just yet because I want it to cool down first, and then I'll put my lid on it. We're going to come back after this is cooled for a few hours, and I'm going to show you just how good this caramel is. Our caramel has been cooling for just about 12 hours or a little more, but I did not want you all to not see how awesome that caramel sauce is. And I will tell you this, once it starts to cool initially, you may see a separation, but if you stir it really well, I promise, don't throw it away. It's nothing wrong with it. It's just, it's separating as it's cooling. But once it cools all the way and you stir it, you all, this caramel sauce is so creamy and silky. If you try this sauce, please, 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 drop your pictures in the comment. I want to see when you make these easy recipes. So I know I did not say it earlier. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our channel.